Ladies and gentlemen, we're out here at Sickly Bernice's Tap House, vibing with our newly acquired skinned hound. Oh, he actually has a cute little head tilt on him. Let's see if Sickly Bernice is feeling any better now. Oh god, well, she's still struggling, but she doesn't want us to do anything. Okay, well, that's the good news. Let's have a seat. And we're gonna... Are you good? And we're gonna read some more books today. Whoop-de-frickin' do. You know what? I think we're gonna start from the latter half of the pile with Words and Philosophy. Wow, 22 pages. All right, I think we might do. Let's see if we do Words and Philosophy as well as Withershins. That might be a good day right there. And then is this? No, that's another long one. All right. Yeah, probably, maybe just those two books. I don't know. We'll see. I think. I think I'm getting nervous, right? I don't think there's enough quests and locations for us to explore, and like at the pace that we're going, and for us to not. For us to be able to finish reading every book within the cycle that we're going. So I'm going to change up the order of videos now. We're going to have one reading. We're going to be doing a lot more reading. We're going to be doing a reading video. We'll then be doing a exploration video, then another reading video, then a quest video, reading, exploration, reading, quest. Just flip-flopping around. So, yeah. Anyway, Words and Philosophy. I mean, I could always read like fucking 5 books in one video, but that's just unnecessary, you know. Lady Elena Bennick, former master of the Valenwood Fighters Guild and head of the Emperor's personal guard in the Imperial City, has been leading a campaign to reacquaint the soldiers of Tamriel with the sword. I met with her on 3 different occasions for the purposes of this book. The first time was at her suite in the palace, on the balcony overlooking the gardens below. I was early for the interview, which had taken me nearly 6 months to arrange, but she gently chided me for not being even earlier. Jeez. I've had time to put up my defenses now, she said, her bright green eyes smiling. Lady Bennick is a Bosmer, a wood elf, and like her ancestors, took to the bow in her early years. She excelled at the sport, and by the age of 14 she had joined the hunting party of her tribe as a jasper, a long-distance shooter. During the Black Year of 396, when the Peric tribe began their rampage through southeastern Valenwood with the aid of powers from the Somerset Isle, Lady Bennick fought the futile battle to keep her tribe's land. I killed someone for the first time when I was 16, she says now. I don't remember it very well. He or she was just a blur on the horizon where I aimed my bow. What the fuck? It meant no more to me than shooting animals. That's fucked up. I probably killed 100 people like that during that summer and fall. I didn't really feel like a killer until that wintertide, when I learned what it was like to look into a man's eye as you spilled his blood. Holy fucking Christ. It was a scout from the Peric tribe who surprised me while I was on camp watch. We surprised each other, I suppose. I had my bow at my side, and I just panicked, trying to string an arrow when he was half a yard away from me. It was the only thing I knew to do. Of course, he struck first with his blade, and I just fell back in shock. You always remember the mistakes of your first victim. His mistake was assuming because he had drawn blood and I had fallen that I was dead. I rushed at him I rushed at him the moment he turned from me towards the sleeping camp of my tribesmen. He was caught off guard, and I wrestled his blade away from him. I don't know how many times I stabbed at him. By the time I stopped, when the next watch came to relieve me, my arms were black and blue with strain. And probably also pretty fucking bloody. There was not a solid piece of him left, jeez. I had literally cut him into pieces. You see, I had no concept of how to fight, or how much it took to kill a man. Lady Bennick, aware of this deficiency in her education, began teaching herself swordsmanship at once. You can't learn how to use a sword in Valenwood, she says, which isn't to say Bosmer can't use blades, but we're largely self-taught. As much as it hurts when my tribe found itself homeless, pushed to the north, it did have one good aspect. It afforded me the opportunity to meet Redguards. Studying all manners of weapon wielding under the tutelage of Warde Akor, Lady Bennick excelled. She became a freelance adventurer, traveling through the wilds of southern Hammerfell and northern Valenwood, protecting caravans and visiting dignitaries from the various dangers indigenous to the population. Unfortunately, before we were able to pursue her story of her early years any further, Lady Bennick was called away on urgent summons from the Emperor. Okay, she's pretty high up then. Such is often the case with the Imperial Guard, and in these troubled times perhaps more so than in the past. When I tried to contact her for another talk, her servants informed me that their mistress was in Skyrim. Another month passed, and when I visited her suite, I was told she was in High Rock. Jeez, fucking wild-ass goose chase here. To her credit, Lady Bennick actually sought me out for our second interview on Sun's Dusk of that year. I was in a tavern in the city called the Blood and Rooster. When I felt her hand on my shoulder, she sat down at the rude table and continued her tale as if it had never been interrupted. That's impressive memory. She returned to the theme of her day as an adventurer and told me about the first time she ever felt confident with a sword. I owned at that time an enchanted Daikatana, quite a good one, of Daedric material. It wasn't an ordinary Akaviri, not even of design. I didn't have that kind of money, but it served my primary purpose of delivering as much damage with as little effort on my part as possible. Akor had taught me how to fence, but when faced with a life-or-death situation, I always fell back on the old overhand wallop. A pack of orcs had stolen some golds from a local chieftain in Medidia, and I went looking for them in one of the ubiquitous dungeons that dot the countryside in that region. They were the usual rats and giant spiders, frostbite spiders, I would suppose. And I was enough of a veteran by then to... it's probably not frostbite spiders, huh? If they're in fucking Valenwood, right? And I was enough of a veteran by then to dispatch them with relative ease. The problem came when I found myself in a pitch-black room, and all around me I heard the grunts of orcs nearing in. I waved my sword around me, connecting with nothing, hearing their footsteps coming ever nearer. Somehow, I managed to hold back my fear and to remember the simple exercises Master Akor had taught me. I listened, stepped sideways, swung, twisted, stepped forward, swung a circle, turned around, sidestepped, swung. Wow, what excellent moves, dude. My instinct was right. The orcs had gathered in a circle around me, and when I found a light, I saw that they were all dead. That is pretty fucking... I kind of doubt that, but sure. That's when I focused on my study of swordplay. I'm stupid enough to require a near-death experience to see the practical purposes, you see. Lady Bennick spent the remainder of the interview responding in her typically blunt way to the veracity of various myths that surrounded her and her career. It was true that she became the master of the Valenwood Fighters Guild after winning a duel with the former master, who was a stooge of the Imperial battle mage, the traitor Yeagar Tharn. Interesting, okay. I wonder if this lady is in, like, the Elder Scrolls Arena. Maybe, I don't know. Odd. It was not true that she was the one responsible for the Valenwood Guild's disintegration 2 years later. Actually, the membership in the Valenwood chapter was healthy, but in Tamriel, overall, the mood was not conducive for the continued existence of a nonpartisan organization of freelance warriors. It was true that she first came to the Emperor's attention when she defended Queen Akrithi of Sentinel from a Breton assassin. It was not true that the assassin was hired by someone in the High Court of Daggerfall. At least, she says rightfully, that has never been proven. It was also true that she married her former servant Urkin after he had been in her service for 11 years. No one knows how to keep my weaponry honed like he does, she says. It's a practical business. I either had to give him a raise or marry him. Okay, yeah. Odd, okay. The only story I asked her that she would neither admit nor refute was the one about Calaxes, the emperor's bastard. When I brought up the name, she shrugged, professing no knowledge of the affair. I pressed on with the details of the story. Calaxes, though not in line for succession, had been given the bishopric of the One, a powerful position in the imperial city, the archbishop, and indeed over all Tamriel, where that religion is honored. Whispering began immediately that Calaxes believed that the gods were angered with the secular governments of Tamriel and the emperor specifically. It was even said that Calaxes advocated full-scale rebellion to establish a theocracy over the empire. It is certainly true, I pressed on, that the emperor's relationship with Calaxes had become very stormy, and that legislation had been passed to limit the church's authority. That is, up until the moment when Calaxes disappeared, suddenly, without notice to his closest of friends. Many said that Lady Bennick and the Imperial Guard assassinated the Archbishop Calaxes in the sacrificialness of his church. The date usually given was the 29th of Sun's Dusk, 3rd Era, 498. Of course, responds Lady Bennick with one of her mysterious grins. I don't need to tell you that the Imperial Guard's position is as protectors of the throne, not assassins. But surely no one is more trusted that the Guard for such a sensitive operation, I say carefully. Lady Bennick acknowledges that, but merely says that such details of her duties must remain secret as a matter of imperial security. Unfortunately, her ladyship had to leave early the next morning, as the Emperor had business down south. Of course, I couldn't be told more specifics. She promised to send me word when she returned so we could continue our interview. As it turned out, I had business of my own in the Somerset Isles, compiling a book on the Sigic Order. It was therefore with surprise that I met her ladyship 3 months later in Firsthold. We managed to get away from our respective duties to complete our third and final interview. On a walk along the Deseto? The great river that passes through the royal parks of the city. That sounds splendid. Sounds like, what is it, Venice? Yeah, pretty sure. Steering away from the questions of her recent duties and assignments, which I guessed rightly she was loath to answer, I returned to the subject of sword fighting. Frondar Hunding, she says, lists 38 grips, 750 offensive and 1,800 defensive positions. I don't know. I just click a button, man. I don't know how this shit works. And nearly 9,000 moves essentially to sword mastery. The average hack and slasher knows one grip, which he uses primarily to keep from dropping his blade. He knows one offensive position, facing his target, and one defensive position, fleeing. Of the multitudinous rhythms and inflections of combat, he knows less than one. The ways of the warrior were never meant to be the easiest path. The archetype of the idiot fighter is as solidly ingrained as that of the brilliant wizard and the shrewd thief, but it was not always so. The figure of the philosopher swordsman, the blade-wielding artist, are creatures of the past. Together with the sword singer of the Red Guards, who was said to be able to create and wield a blade with but the power of his mind. The future of the intelligent blade wielder looks bleak in comparison to the glories of the past. Not wanting to end our interviews on a sour note, I pressed Lady Elena Bennick for advice for young blade swingers just beginning their careers. When confronted with a wizard, she says, throwing petals of canthleaf into the Deseto, close the distance and hit him hard. That is the truest shit I've ever heard. Yes, you come across a wizard, you just gotta stay right up next to that dude and just keep fucking swinging, because they weak as shit, but they can do some damage. Alright, Withershins. 20-page book. Alright. Here we go, round 2. Withershins by Yaquet Tawashi. Alright, said Ksaga. Why don't you want to talk? Zaki put down his mug of mead and just stared at his wife for a few seconds, finally, grudgingly. Because everything I have a conversation, darling. It flows in alphabetical order. Wait, what? Because everything I have a conversation, darling. It flows in alphabetical order. Just like I told you, I think the only way to stop it is not to talk at all. Oh, okay, yeah. I was like, wait, what? I'm like, what do you mean that? 'Cause I was thinking like the sentence itself was going to be alphabetical, but no. The first, that starts with an A. His next conversation starts with a B. That starts with a C. Okay. Couldn't you just be imagining this? Said Kazaka patiently. It wouldn't be the first time you had an insane paranoid delusion. Remember when you thought the royal battle mage of Black Marsh was hiding behind every tree with lewd intent on making you, a middle-aged, fat, balding tailor, into his personal sex slave? What the fuck is going on? You don't need to be ashamed. You don't need to be ashamed, but it's Sheogorath's way to make us all a little crazy sometimes. If you go to the healer, damn it, Kazaga, snarled Zaki and stomped out, slamming the door behind him. He nearly collided with Siaset, his neighbor. Excuse me, she said to Zaki's back. He claimed his hands over his ears as he stormed down the street, turning the corner to his tailor shop. His first customer was waiting out front, smiling widely. Zaki tried to keep his temper under control and took out his keys, returning the customer's smile. Fine day, said the young man. Gods, hollered Zaki, sending the young man flying with a well-placed punch and dashing away. What the fuck? As much as he hated to admit that Kazaga was right, it was evidently time, once again, for one of the healer's herbal cocktails. Tarsu's temple to heal, mental and physical, was several streets north, an impressive obelisk. Halka, the chief herbalist, met him before he came in the hall. How are you today, Sazaki-Saf? I need to make an appointment with Tarsu, said Zaki in his calmest voice. Just one moment. Let me see how his schedule looks, Halka said, looking over a scroll. Is this an emergency? Kind of, said Zaki, and slapped his head. Why couldn't he say yes, or absolutely, or sure? Let's see, said Halka, frowning. The best I can do is next Midas. Would that work for you? Midas, cried Zaki. I'll be a complete psychotic by Midas. Isn't there anything earlier? He knew the answer what the answer would be before he said it. There was no alternative. In a way, he had forced the response. If only he had kept the conversation going until why. No, said Halka. I'm sorry. Do you want to make the appointment? Zalka walked away, gritting his teeth. He wandered the streets, his head down to avoid all conversations, until he looked up and discovered that he had walked all the way to the wharf. A sweet breeze was blowing along the water, and he took several deep breaths until he felt almost normal. When his temper cooled, he could think again. What if this alphabetical conversation wasn't a delusion at all? What if what he felt wasn't paranoia, but acute awareness? He knew it was the classic dilemma. Am I crazy? Is there really something wrong or something weird going on? Across the road was a shop. How does one even notice that they're doing this? I feel like I wouldn't. I don't think I could ever possibly notice that everything I say starts with the next letter of the alphabet, but hey. B, C, D. Across the road was a shop called Paradox. Paradox, yeah. Featuring a display of herbs, crystals, and vapors trapped in orbs. The sign in the window read, Mystical Consultation, sunrise to noon. Okay. It was worth a shot, though Zaki was dubious. The only people who generally came down the wharf for healing were stupid adventurers who didn't know any better. Incense burned in copious billows of pink and gold, obscuring and then revealing the clutter within. Gigic death masks glowered down from the halls, smoking censers hung by chains from the ceiling. And the floor was a maze of bookshelves. At a well-worn table in the back, a small man wearing a headdress was tabulating a young lady's purchases. Okay, said the man, your total comes to 57 gold pieces. I threw in the restorative scale conditioner for free. Just remember, the candle should be lit only after you invoke Goraflox, the unholy. The mandrake root does best in partial shade. Okay. The customer gave a quick, shy smile to Zaki and left to the store. Please help me, said Zaki. Every conversation I hear or get involved in seems to be arranged alphabetically. I don't know if I am going insane or if there are some kind of bizarre forces at work. To be honest with you, I'm normally a skeptic when it comes to your type of business, but I'm at the end of my rope. Can you do anything to make this madness end? LMNOPQ, quite a common problem, actually, said the man, patting Zaki on the arm. When you get to the end of the alphabet, do conversations, then go to reverse alphabetical order, or start at the beginning of the alphabet. Reverse alphabetical order, said Zaki, and then corrected himself. Damn it, I mean it starts from the beginning, all over again. I'm in agony. Can you call on the spirits and tell me? Am I insane? I love that. He can't even answer the question right. He has to keep the alphabet going. Sariki, said the man with a reassuring smile. I don't have to. You're quite sane. Thank you, said Zaki, frowning. By the way, my name's Zaki, not Sariki. Unusually close, huh? And the man patting Zaki on the back. My name's Octoplasm. Follow me, please. I think I have what you need. Octoplasm led Zaki down the narrow corridor behind the desk. The two men pushed past dusty cabinets filled with strange creatures and liquids, past heaps of Neolithic stones, past stack after stack of moldering leather, bound books, into the dank heart of the store. There he picked up a small, squat, cylindrical drum and a book and handed them to Zaki. Vampirism, Daedric Possession, and Withershin Therapy. Withershin. 'Tis the name of the book, said Zaki, squinting his eyes to read the book in the gloom. What in Oblivion does this have to do with me? I'm not a vampire. Look at this tan. And what's Withershin Therapy? And how much will it cost me? Withershins, from the old Cyrodiilic Withershins, which means backwards, said Octoplasm in a serious tone. It's the art of reversing the direction of things in order to gain access to the spirit world, and break curses, cure vampirism, and another cure for vampirism? What? And trigger all manners of epitropic healing. I don't know how the fuck to say that. You know the story about the guy who was told that slaughterfish live in hot water? So he said, well, let's boil them in cold water. Xenophus, said Zaki instinctively, his brother having taken a rather esoteric upper-level course in Cyrodiilic philosophy as an elective in at the Imperial College. Where the fuck's the Imperial College? But sure. 31 years before, and immediately wishing he hadn't. And what do you do with the Cyrodiilic thingy? Octoplasm lit a candle and held the object over it so Zaki could see more clearly. All along the cylinder were narrow slits, and when Zaki peered within them, he saw a succession of old black and white drawings of a naked man leaping over boxes, one frame after the next. You spin it like so, said Octoplasm, slowly whirling the device clockwise so the man within leapt over the boxes over and over again. It's called a zoetrope. Pretty neat, eh? Now you take it and start spinning it counterclockwise, and while you're doing it, read this incantation. I've marked it in the book. Zaki took the zoetrope and began spinning it counterclockwise over the candle, so the little naked man within seemed to bound backwards over the boxes. It took a little coordination and concentration to keep whirling at a steady pace, but gradually the man's awkward and jerky back jumps became more and more fluid until Zaki could no longer see the individual frames flipping. It looked just like it looked just like a little humanoid hamster on an endless reverse treadmill. While he continued to spin the zoetrope with one hand, Zaki took the book in the other and read the underlined passage. Zoetrope counterspin, counterspin, counterspin. Pull my life from the ruts that it's in. I have invoked the goddesses Boethia, Kinnerith, and Drissus to invert my potentially metaphysical crisis. My old life may have been rather pointless and plain, but I dislike the prospect of going insane. Make the pattern reverse by his Withershin. Zoetrope, counterspin, counterspin, counterspin. As he chanted the spell, Zaki noticed that the little naked man in the Zoetrope began to look more like himself. The mustache vanished, and the hairline receded. The man's waistline expanded, and the buttocks sagged to the shape and texture of half-inflated balloons. Okay, oddly specific, but yeah, sure. Scales approximately his own Argonian pattern appeared. The man began to trip as he bounded backwards over the boxes, taking bigger breaths and sweating. By the time Zaki reached the end of the incantation, his twin was clutching his chest and tumbling end over the boxes in a freefall. Octoplasm took the Zoetrope and the book from Zaki's hands. Nothing seemed to have changed. No thunder had rumbled, no winged serpents had sprung out of Zaki's head, no fiery explosions, but Zaki felt that something was different. Good different. Normal. At the counter, when Zaki pulled out his satchel of gold pieces, Octoplasm merely shook his head. Are treatment radical such of effects term long the what? Sure be can't we naturally charge no? Feeling the first real relief he had felt in days, Zaki walked backwards out of the shop and down the road to his shop. Oh boy. Okay, so now he's literally just talking backwards. But ironically enough, he still started with the letter A in that conversation. He's literally just saying it and even doing everything backwards now. Okay. He said that backwards, so he technically said, are treatment radical such of effects term long the what's sure be can't we naturally? Charge no. But he actually said, no charge. Naturally, we can't be sure what the long-term effects of such radical treatment are. Whoo, boy. Okay. Yeah, that's a fucking book right there. That indeed was one of the books. That indeed was a book. Yep, we have read book. Well, yeah. How's it going, buddy? That's gonna do it for today. We've read a couple fairly interesting books, I suppose. Yeah, I would say so. Well, that second one was fucking weird. But yeah, thanks for watching. When next we return, we're actually gonna start traveling the road for the Mania side. We're gonna start at the Gates of Madness, start heading along the whatever the hell this road is, Overlook Road. Yeah. So until then, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And, as always, Galbars.
Cause I don't wanna see the glow without you. Refuse to even leave my home without you. Or my brain's gonna explode without you. I don't even know how to cope without you. Cause I don't wanna see the glow without you. Refuse to even leave my home without you. Or my brain's gonna explode without you. I don't even know how to cope without you.